is our star actor, the new Mercedes-Benz Formula One racing car. A car of revolutionary design.
Well, what's really cool about this car is it wasn't ever designed as a road car. It was really designed as a race car. So after World War II, war-torn Europe is not into racing. But Mercedes realizes they have to get back at it. They were super dominant before the war, and they wanted to prove that they were still able to win races and sell cars. Neubauer and Uhlenhaut decide they're gonna build a race car, but they don't have any good parts. They got a 300S, which is a 6-cylinder, 3-liter, anemic motor. They've got a bunch of suspension parts from the 300S that are not really good. So they decide what they're gonna have to do is build a really killer chassis. And you gotta remember that Uhlenhaut, not only was he a spectacular race car driver, as fast as Fangio, but he was a brilliant engineer and he knew how to build chassis. So he says, I'm gonna take this chassis, I'm gonna triangulate the crap out of the thing, and by that, he's gonna make it super strong and super light. So he's got like a 140-pound race chassis triangulated with a huge section depth to make it super rigid, but he's got crappy suspension and basically a crappy engine. So he says, we're gonna make it up with aerodynamic. So they build this really cool looking body, and it doesn't really have room for doors. The original 300SL, the doors are up here, and they have to climb in through the top here. And because the section depth is so big, the rockers have to be giant, and it's all triangulated to make it rigid, it's not a very practical, even race car. But on its first outing, the Mille Miglia in '52, the car finishes second and fourth with a bunch of thrown together bits on this really cool chassis and body. Neubauer and Uhlenhaut, they aren't happy with a second. Typical Germans. So what do? They go and do a little bit of tweaking, add a little bit more horsepower. The next race they go to after a few little tweaks is the Swiss Grand Prix. They finish first, second, and third. The next race they go to is Le Mans. They finish first and second. The next race they go to is the Nürburgring, the most deadly track on the planet. They finish first, second, third, and fourth. And then if that wasn't enough, they go to the Panamera race in Mexico and they finish first and second again. They just utterly dominated. So what do you do after you finish setting the world on fire with your new race car? You stop racing it. The reason they stop racing it is because the next car they're actually going to race is the famous 300 SLR. Now it's an 8-cylinder, it's a race car, it's a race motor, and it is gonna dominate in '54. It's gonna win 10 out of 13 races it enters, and it's gonna sweep 6 of them. It's just gonna be so dominant, and was so dominant that of course you're gonna park this one, the W194 race car. So here's the irony, is if it wasn't for an Austrian Jew, Max Hoffmann, the 300SL would never have been built. That W194 race car, 300SL, would have went down in the history books as a super successful car, but it wouldn't have been built as a road car. Max pleads with the Germans and says, let's build a road car. I can sell a ton of these in North America. So what do? They basically modify their race car, add some creature comforts, they add a bigger door, and they actually add more horsepower. They go from basically 170 horsepower to 219 horsepower, Bosch fuel injected, the first time they did it with a gasoline engine. All the trick stuff that they used on the race car was held over for the road car. So these things would run forever. Of course, if you're gonna sell the cars, they have to be a little bit more luxurious. So the interiors, they make them beautiful. They add the luggage. They keep the racing wheels on some of the cars, very rare, but the Rudges were obviously race-inspired wheels. They add bigger bumpers. They make the car a little bit more user-friendly, but you still have this giant sill here. And the reason you have this giant sill is because the frame goes from here to here, and under the hood, remember I was telling you about how triangulated that chassis was on the W194 race car? Well, it's the same on the street car. Look how high the top of the frame is. The frame did get a little bit heavier. It went from about 140 pounds to 180 pounds, but still super lightweight. A little bit more horsepower. It kept basically the same suspension, which was pretty good on the race car, but on the road car, if you had a complaint about it, was these cars were a little bit loose. Loose is fast on a race car, not so easy on the street to drive. They got a little bit of a reputation for putting guys into the ditch eventually. They fixed that with the 300SL Roadster. So you've got one of the most iconic cars ever built, one of the most beautiful cars ever built, one of the most reliable, fastest cars for the day. I mean, it was a 150-mile-an-hour car. You think about this, this is early 50s. I mean, this is a super fast car for that time period. All of that happened really because Rudolf Uhlenhaut was a brilliant engineer, designed a brilliant chassis and a lightweight, SL, that's what it stands for, lightweight body chassis, used components that they had readily available and turned it to a dominant race car. Ironic how one of the most iconic street cars really was a race car that somebody begged the factory to actually build. They had no intention of building it. It's still one of the most rallied cars on the planet. You go to the Colorado Grand, you go to any of the big rallies anywhere around the world, and the car to go to is a 300SL Gullwing. So Gary's got a real soft spot for 300 Gullwings. The first big car he bought was a 300 Gullwing when he was, I don't know, 18 years old. So he really enjoys driving these cars. We're gonna let him take this for a rip and talk about it.
Man, oh man, what a cool car. These cars have been near the top of my list for all-time favorite cars for a very long time. Those of you who watched the old legendary Motorcar show saw me buy one of these cars back in my late teens or early 20s, one of the first big car deals that I did. These cars are so iconic and really a cornerstone of so many car collections, and for good reason. They were just so far ahead of their time, really the first supercar for the street. You know, the initial design was for the W194, just a flat out, full-on race car to go and dominate the European sports racing scene in the 50s. And then of course with Max Hoffman calling up Mercedes saying, hey, there's a huge market for sports cars in America. Go ahead, build this 300SL Gullwing. I can sell these things like hotcakes over in the States. And of course the rest is history. We get the first real race car that was built for the street. I mean, tubular chassis, gullwing doors, independent suspension. Beautiful 4-speed transmission. It's my wife there. Such a low drag coefficient on the car that was necessary for those big races, those big long races at Le Mans, the Nürburgring, and the Mille Miglias, giving you a top end of 160 miles an hour, all out of a little 3-liter engine, putting out 215 horsepower if you were measuring it in the German way, or 240 horsepower if you were measuring it the American way. If you got your hands on one of these cars in the mid-50s, there was not much on the street that you'd have to compete against. Beautiful interior. The guy wanted it done like the Ralph Lauren car. Car goes through the gears so nicely. Okay, let's get on it here. Up through the gears. Oh yeah. Up to 4th gear. Now we're cooking. this thing sounds good. You know, I never really thought of these cars as spectacular sounding cars. But man, a car like this obviously is the whole package. I'd say the only knock on these cars, and it's well known, is if you're gonna take a car like this for a long drive, it gets a little toasty warm in here because of how well sealed up these cars are. You gotta remember, these cars were designed with a low drag coefficient and aerodynamics in first position, and driver comfort may have been sacrificed a little bit. Lots of front end grip in this car. All right, up to third gear. Oh, wow. Car really comes alive around 4,000 RPM. It just floats beautifully. Very stable at high speeds. And I imagine at high speeds, not that we're going to be cornering at extremely high speeds, but you got to remember how much of a belly pan is underneath these cars. There's so much downforce, so much air just being sucked and pulled out the back of these cars, that these cars certainly had so much grip on those high-speed corners.
We should all be thankful Uhlenhaut was a brilliant engineer, a brilliant race car driver, and that Max Hoffman had the foresight to say, this is a winner, and it truly is one of the most iconic winners they've ever built.
If you want to see more car content like this, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to visit our website to explore our curated inventory of luxury, classic, and investment grade cars.